So it is now confirmed that Ashes of Creation Alpha 2 has been delayed, not by a while because they did say Q3, but it's actually coming in Q4, and more specifically, it's coming in October. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the Bard Showcase, which was in tonight's stream, so let's jump in, let's talk about it. Now, this was one of the most hotly anticipated live streams, and the viewer numbers reflected this. I think I saw there was like 15,000 people watching at one point, and that was all because we thought we were going to be getting a Alpha 2 release date. Well, it turns out we sort of did. That's actually going to be coming in October, but we don't know anything more specific than that. However, for more information, we know that's going to be coming on August 16th. It seems like Stephen Sharif will be doing an Ask Me Anything, and it's all going to be about the Alpha 2 roadmap. They basically said that's when we're getting all the information, and that includes when you can buy in and probably for how much. I expect, by the way, that the price will be somewhere between $50 to $100, but complete speculation on my part, and I also think you'll be able to buy in either a little bit before or when it goes live. As for the delay from like September to October, not unexpected. They mentioned that actually they're just not ready, but they also factored in World of Warcraft and Throne of Liberty, which makes sense, probably a good decision. Obviously, Ashes of Creation has had a lot of delays in the past, so, hopefully we won't get another one. As for the Bard, yeah, I'm going to recommend that if you want the whole detail and you're very much a Bard enjoy, that you should watch the stream itself. However, that's not actually available because they're going to take it down because they were having sound issues and they want to change the sound. So I will do my best to summarize, but I'll be leaving a lot of spaces basically. So for the Bard, basically there's a couple of different types of abilities, one of which are these melodies. There's a number of these. I think there are actually 5 melodies. One of them is healing, which basically gives you a slight heal and then increases the healing done, or like basically your healing gets boosted. One is mana, one is a similar thing but for speed, one is lifesteal, and the other one is just a debuff to the enemies. These melodies, they're a little bit weird, at least in terms of like how they're cast. It looks like the duration of the cast is dependent on how long you are casting it, but I don't think you're actively casting it. It's sort of like a bar that's going up that you then want to weave abilities in between. But the longer you cast it, the longer the duration of the spell on the person. I was a little bit confused by that. Now, maybe it's because I was streaming and I was, being a bit of an idiot, but it has a 20-second cast and then the duration is longer than that because it sort of goes up in increments. Either way, these are going to be abilities that you're going to want to like fall in between all the rest of the abilities. You're going to have one of these up no matter what. One thing to note is that the Bard will have different instruments. Now, the instruments are purely cosmetic. It does change the animation and the sound effects, but it's purely cosmetic. The spell book, which the Bard is wielding in this video, is a weapon that anybody can use in theory. That's the weapon. The instrument is cosmetic, okay? And then they did show off the skill tree, how there are basically going to be a skill option that will then amend or change the way you use these melodies. One of them is basically you have one of the melodies getting powered up. It's just stronger. And then another one basically lets you have 2 melodies. You can weave them both at the same time. The melodies, by the way, have a big AoE range, and that range is actually persistent whilst you are casting it basically. So if somebody wasn't in the range when you cast it, but then they end up being in the range, you will get the benefit of that effect. And when you cast it, you can sort of see the range, but then after you cast it, you can't see the range. There was another type of abilities called dances, and your character literally dances when you cast these. Now, these are shorter range, but are quite powerful. One of them was called Shielding Dance, which, just heals and creates a shield, like a health shield. Now, anybody in the range gets it, but whilst you're casting it, you can move, and anybody within the range whilst you are casting it will also get it. So you're going to want to move around, and there's like basically a bit of an ability called Flourish, which we'll talk about in a minute. You want to use all of that to get as many people in as you can. There's another dance which gives you evasion and move speed, one that creates incapacitate on the enemies, and I think there's another dance that just increases your damage. And then they showed off a lot of single type abilities that don't necessarily fit into a category. They're just individual abilities. One of them was a knockback called Get Off the Stage, which does a knockback, but the knockback was very small. They said they're going to increase that, and it will slow them by default. And actually, if they're staggered, you will disarm them as well. There was an ability called Quick Hit that does different things if it's an enemy or a friendly. For an enemy, I think it demoralizes them. For a friendly, I think it just basically heals them. There were a couple of other single target spells that they mentioned. One of them was Lovely Serenade, which increases the healing received and did a little bit of healing. There was one that I think was called Anthem of Alacrity, which had this cool like clock animation that increased your casting speed and your attack speed, and you attack really fast. I think it was like 25%. There was one called, I think, Chilling Ailment, which dealt damage and then froze them, which apparently also combos with the mage. The chilling effect also looks really cool. There was an ability called Dark Lullaby, which apparently does spirit damage, which very interestingly won't wake an enemy if they are incapacitated. Normally damage will, but this lullaby won't. And actually, if the person is incapacitated, this ability will stun. And one of the abilities that I didn't mention before is called Mesmerize, which is going to basically incapacitate somebody. So you're going to want to mesmerize into Dark Lullaby, and boom, there you go. You've got a lot of little combos here. There's quite a few combos that were definitely sort of 2 ability combos that you will want to use. One of them was Discordance, which basically is a stagger that can bounce. And then if you do that with Get Off the Stage, that'll disarm them. Nice little combos like that. There was an ability called Flourish, which is basically just a dash, which you can change direction while dashing, and it looked pretty cool. It did have this like cool rainbow track, which was maybe a little bit jarring, but looked pretty nice overall, I think. There was also a very powerful ability called Gambit. This they then use later on in the gameplay, but basically it changes your health with the target. So if you're high health and your tank is low health, you can basically give the tank all your health, but you'll then go to low health, which isn't a problem if you're not being attacked. You can actually troll with this though. If you're low health and somebody is higher health in your party, you can take their health and they will get the low health. Pretty funny. Obviously, if somebody keeps doing that maliciously, you just kick them. And then there's this system called Saga, which is sort of similar to the other ones where there's going to be a different type. Some of the abilities will basically give you a stack of this kind of type of melody. Then you will unleash that with a Saga. You can only get one of these buffs every 30 seconds. For example, I think one of them is called Note of Tragedy. And if you have 3 of those Notes of Tragedy, you'll do an Apocalypse ability. Now, if you have different buffs, different stories, you'll end up doing different abilities, but they didn't have them to show off today. The Apocalypse ability, in this sense, is basically an ultimate ability where it's a dragon breathing fire. I think the head is facing a little bit of a different way, which sort of jarring a little bit, but I think they're going to work on that because originally it was like a 2D pop-up house, and it actually, you know, I'm pretty sure they're going to fix it, but I think it looked a little bit weird, but you know, these are very early testing, so I'm not too stressed about that. There was a couple of things that they showed off when they were doing not the bad showcase. For example, this is, I think, the first time they've shown off elite enemies. 1-star gold elite enemies are not as strong as 2-star gold elite enemies, but that was interesting to see. One interesting note about flagging is that if somebody attacks you, you can't automatically attack back if you have that setting turned on. It means that if you're AoEing some mobs, and somebody comes in and stands in your AoE and then attacks you, you won't automatically attack them back, I'm guessing, unless you have that setting turned on. You then have to do some kind of combination or key press to make it so that you can flag up to attack them, which was interesting to see. They also added diminishing returns on CC. Apparently that was a big thing in previous tests. They didn't have any. They are going to be sort of like different CC buckets. You know, so maybe like a slow will be different from a snare, just for an example. I don't think that makes any sense. Also confirmed a little bit how corruption works. Steven killed one of the guys, and the party members who weren't involved in the fight did not get corruption, which makes sense, but it was just nice to have it confirmed. There were a couple of criticisms that they sort of addressed at the end, which, to be fair, whilst I was watching it, I did have these criticisms. One of them was that the animations of the enemies looked incredibly low FPS, and effectively they have this performance manager which wasn't quite correctly tuned. So they did look low FPS basically, but they'll get fixed. There was also an issue with the spell effects again. The spell effects of the bard are very, very bright. Like, it looks cool. I mean, maybe I'm not really a bard enjoyer in general, but it actually looked visually very cool. The dances and all that kind of stuff looked really fun. But I did think that when they were in a small little room, the spell effects were completely crazy with the exposure. They say that the new lighting is going to help with that, but the strongness of the spell effects in Ashes of Creation is something that people persistently keep talking about. I think ultimately they're going to need toning down. I know you can change the setting yourself, but you know, it's just neon purple, green, yellow, blue, and in small tight confines, you literally can't see anything. Now, hopefully that'll get fixed with the lighting. I still think they'll probably need to touch the actual abilities though. They're actually going to take down the live stream because some of the sounds are laid a little bit weird and it was a little bit jarring going from different people's perspective. I'm not too stressed about that. That's what alphas are for. They'll fix that. Interesting note with the bard briefly is that if you have 2 bards, the same buff will not stack. So you will have to sort of coordinate between yourselves to make sure you don't step on each other's toes. Quick little note about the spellbook in my personal opinion. I thought it was too big and it looked a little bit weird. Pretty sure they'll fix it. The actual animations though were quite cool where the magic comes out of the spellbook. I actually really like that. So yeah, all the good stuff is going to be coming on August 16th. I'll be there, I'll be here. We'll talk about it on Twitch, we'll talk about it here. If I can remember and they eventually put the new updated stream on YouTube, then I'll leave a link in the description. Obviously that might be in a couple of days. I don't know how long that's going to take them. They're probably going to have to like re-render it and put all the footage together and stuff like that. So maybe not anytime soon. Anyway, big shout out to my Patreons. Come follow me on Twitch. Have a beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.